Hey, Cub fans! Thanks for joining us here on Cubs 24/7, where Randy talks Cubs with delight and optimism. And we're going to talk closers, Cubs relievers, but mostly we're going to end up talking about Dennis Eckersley. What happened was I was just doing a little bit of just going through some numbers, and I was looking at closing numbers, and it just struck me how many relief pitchers the Cubs had, closers who were on that list of maybe top 50 saves of all time. And one thing leads to the next, one question leads to the next, and I found myself finding some very interesting information about Dennis Eckersley's numbers, and I thought that, well, let me just kind of follow that, and I found it so interesting, I decided I was going to go ahead and share it with you. So basically what happened was I went through the numbers and found that Eck is number 9 all time. So the top relief guys in terms of saves are Mariano Rivera. He's got 652. Trevor Hoffman has 601. Former Cub Lee Smith has 478. Francisco Rodriguez has 437. John Franco has 424. Billy Wagner has 422. Kelly Jensen has 420. Craig Kimbrel 417. Of course, Kenley and Craig are still active. And then Dennis Eckersley comes in 9th at 390. And it just sort of struck me as interesting to dive in because Eck was never a closer with the Cubs. And when I started to look at that, I liked Eck. Eck pitched for the Cubs in 84, 85, and 86. And really a good pitcher. But he was a starter. Eck was a starter his entire career. And he had a 24-year career. I don't count the last year for Eck. He'd gotten old and he played a little bit, but he didn't put any numbers up. So Eck really had about a 22-year career, 24 officially. But he pitched for the Cubs back in the day and was really a good, solid starter. And, of course, he ended up being a phenomenal closer, Hall of Fame closer. And I just thought I'd kind of walk you through what happened to Eck because I see some things that make me think you could almost argue that Dennis Eckersley might be one of the greatest closers of all time. And I know everybody's going to say Mariano Rivera, and I'm not going to argue that, obviously. But I'm going to share some numbers with you comparing Eck with Mariano and a couple of the other guys that I found really interesting. So Eck started his career with Cleveland in 1975, played for Cleveland for 3 years from 75 to 77. Then played for Boston from 78 to 84. So his first 10 years, 3 with Cleveland and the rest with the Sox. And then he came to the Cubs. In 1984, had a good 3 years. He went 27 and 26, had a 3.63 ERA. He started 81 games for the Cubs, pitched 530 innings, had a WHIP of 1.170, had a 8.9 hits per 9 average, which is pretty good, 0.8 home runs per 9, 1.7 walks per 9, and a 5.7 strikeout per 9 during his 3 seasons with the Cubs. So, yeah, a very, very serviceable, very good starter, and I liked him. He was only there 3 years, but I remember him well. And, in fact, this gives me a chance to tell my Eck story. A few years, I lose track of the dates, but a few years after Eck had retired, I'm in Boston on business doing my old life. And I go to a gym across the street from the hotel, and I'm in there, and Eck's in there. Dennis Eckersley's in this gym working out. And I've never been the kind of guy to go up to people and get autographs. I don't think I've ever gotten an autograph in my life. Just not my thing. It doesn't interest me. And I'm not the kind of guy who wants to gush over another guy, and I'm not the kind of guy who wants to interrupt somebody. But it's Dennis Eckersley, man. It's like, wow. Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players of all time, Cub. And that was just kind of cool. He was on this rack where he was just doing these knee lifts, hanging from his elbow to these knees lift. And I just walked by him and just really cool, casual. I said, "What's up, Beck?" And he just goes, "What's up?" Gave me that little nod. It was my Eck encounter that I get to tell for the 400th time possibly. But yeah, I like Dennis Eckersley. He was nasty. That motion that he had, it was incredible. So Eck is with the Cubs from 84 to 86. So that's 10 years plus 3. That's 13 years he's in the bigs. He's never closed. He's been a starter the entire time. So he's now finished his 31-year-old year, and he's going to his 32-year-old year, and he goes to Oakland. And here's what happens in Oakland. Oakland is now managed by Tony La Russa, and the history behind Tony La Russa is that he's one of the first managers who started to think in terms of that ninth inning, late inning closer scenario, that closer specialty. And and you look at the top 50 guys in saves, they're all pretty much modern era guys. You get into the guys that were sort of closing in maybe the 50s, 60s area. Like I know Hoyt Wilhelm is in there like 55 or something. So all the guys in the top are pretty relatively recent guys. And I know from a guy my age, recent is 1975. I got it, but you get my point. So Eck goes to Oakland. In his first years in 87 in Oakland. Well, La Russa took over at Oakland in 86. And clearly La Russa saw something in Eck because he turned him into a reliever, closer, not immediately, but pretty soon. He got to Oakland and he started 2 games and then pitched total in 54. So he had to look at him as a starter for 2 games and then went, nah, you're going to the pen and close. So Dennis Eckersley becomes literally a closer overnight. He's 32 years old. He's playing for Tony La Russa. And in his first season closing, he has 16 saves. And then, of course, he pitches for Oakland till 95 when Tony La Russa leaves and goes to St. Louis. Well, Eck follows him. So Eck pitches for Tony La Russa from 96 to 97 in St. Louis as their closer. So with Oakland and with St. Louis, Eck only closed for 11 years. It was the last 11 years of Eck's career. And I think that's one of the things that makes this kind of an incredible story. Eck is 32 years old before he even starts closing, and he finishes his career with the 9th most saves. So I just wanted to sort of, break that down a little bit. Eck had 390 saves in 11 years closing. And I just sort of did the math on it. So that's number 9. Here's the top 8. Rivera with 652. Trevor Hoffman with 601. Lee Smith with 478. Francisco Rodriguez, 437. John Franco, 424. Billy Wagner, 422. Kenley Jensen with 420. Craig Kimbrel, 417. And Eck with 390. And I just decided, well, if I take X 390 and divide it by 11 years, that's 35.5 saves per year on his average of the years he closed. Well, guess who has the highest average? Eck does. Mariano Rivera had 652 in 19 years. That's 34 per year. Next was Trevor Hoffman, 601, 18 years. That's 33 per year. Dennis Eckersley has the highest per year save average of any of the closers. I found that really interesting. I was like, well, I have to find out more. So I did. So you break it down, Eck had the 390 total, and all but 4 of those saves were in his age 32 to 42 2 years. And that's how he compared to Mariano. So I pulled up Mariano's numbers. We're just going to go head-to-head with Eck and Mariano. And I started them both at their 32-year-old year. So from Mariano's 32-year-old year through his retirement, he had 437 saves in 12 years. Eck had 386 in 11 years. So it's sort of like a dead heat. But Mariano had 215 saves from 25 to 31, the years that Eck didn't pitch. So he got a 215 save head start on Eck, and the finish was close. There's only 47 saves difference from Mariano to Dennis Eckersley, and I just found that really incredible. So I did more. I was like, okay, well, what about WAR? I guess I'm too really old. WAR has never been something that I've gravitated to all that much, but lately I've been doing it just because it's kind of in my face a lot. So Dennis Eckersley has a career WAR of 62.1. Mariano Rivera has a career WAR of 56.3, and Trevor Hoffman is at 28. So Dennis Eckersley has the highest career WAR of any of the closers on the list, in the top 20, really, top 30, and he's within 47 saves of Mariano Rivera, who had 10 more years of closing duty. I got to tell you, man, Dennis Eckersley was some kind of a closer. And it's unfortunate because how many saves did he have for the Cubs? Are you following along? He had none. He had 0. That happens. We've had in my memory, we've had Bruce Sutter, traded before his prime, had 300 saves. Of course, we had Lee Smith, who is third all-time with 478. And I just wanted to go, okay, how many of these closers and how many saves did they have with the Cubs? So the Cubs have, I think there's 8 or 9. I think there's 9 pitchers who pitch for the Cubs who are in the top 50 list. And they are Lee Smith, who's number 3. He had 478 saves, and he had 180 of those with the Cubs. So the Cubs let him go, and he only had about a third of his saves with the Cubs, got the rest as he moved on. Next is Craig Kimbrel. We had Craig for 38 saves out of his 417. Then we had Eck, who's got 390. He didn't save any for the Cubs. Never did anything but start for the Cubs, which is really interesting to me. You get all these guys that are so good at evaluating talent, right? And Dennis Eckersley is a starter for, pretty much well into his prime. And one guy, Tony La Russa, looks at him and goes, nope, you're not a starter. And he took him from a mediocre. He was better than that. You don't become Dennis Eckersley and do what he did unless you're really good. But he wasn't headed toward the Hall of Fame, And then one guy makes a decision, puts him in a different spot, and it just changes everything. It's very intriguing. So Craig Kimbrel had 38, Eck was 0. Next was Randy Myers. Randy Myers is 14th on the list. He's got 347 saves, and he had 112 of those with the Cubs. There's a pitcher, Fernando Rodney, who's 18th on the list with 327. And he pitched for, maybe spot duty. He was 38 years old when the Cubs had him. He didn't have any saves for the Cubs. Then we had Aroldis Chapman. He's 21st on the list with 321 saves. And he had 16 Cubs saves in 2016. So we sold Gleyber Torres for 16 saves, and I'm okay with it. You probably are too. Goose Gossage, to me, I think a famous closer, had 310 saves. He's 27th on the list, and he pitched for the Cubs and had 13 saves for the Cubs. And then next is Bruce Sutter, 300 saves in a short year or a short career with Bruce. 300 saves and just 133, so less than half of them were for the Cubs, and we traded him to the Cardinals. I may have to do a piece on that, walk us through that Sutter. You can tell when I said it, I kind of flinched a little bit, Sutter to the Cardinals. I don't know about that. But it happened, and I think I'll probably walk us through it very soon since it's on my mind now. And then 34th is Rod Beck. Rod Beck had 286 saves, and he had 61 of those with the Cubs. So Eck and Fernando Rodney are the two closers on the top 50 list in saves that pitched for the Cubs who didn't have any. I just found it very interesting. Dennis Eckersley, phenomenal career, and he was with us for 3 years, and I guess we missed it, didn't see it, and he goes on to just become a Hall of Famer in every way. And you could argue, the next time you get in an argument about who's the best closer of all times, go and throw Eck in there. You got some definite stats to back it up. I'm not saying that that's where I'd go. Mariano was Mariano. I got it. But you can't argue with Eck's production in the time that he had. Just incredible. And had he done it in his youth, had he done it and was, he was 32 years old first time he did it, there had to be a learning curve, growth curve. If he'd been doing it since he was 21, 22, I don't know. Could have worked in the opposite direction. You'll never know. But Dennis Eckersley, former Cub, great pitcher, and I just thought it was kind of a neat thing to talk about, and I'm glad I did. So hope you enjoyed it. Continue to support us here on Cubs 24/7, where Randy talks Cubs. Hit that subscribe button for me. Tell all your friends and neighbors, and we'll talk to you very soon. Go Cubs, go.